What's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One vs. World's Life is Strange podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adnan. My co-host Adam is here. Adam, you here?
I'm present. I'm physically present.
Yes, we are physically present here. We are back. Had a bit of an issues with the last recording. Some of you followed us on Twitter and realised what was going on. And eventually that recording came out, but we obviously had a bit of a throwback if you're watching the video version because it was in the old layout. And I'm hoping that this one isn't in the old layout, but if it is, then there's probably still technical issues with the software we're using it, and we're just going to stick with that for the time being. If not, we're back in full frame, then hopefully they fixed it. Fingers crossed. But yeah, we're back with a new podcast episode, and if you are new here, do please leave a subscribe, like, turn on notifications, share with your friends. Slowly climbing to 1,000. I'd love to hit 1,000 before the end of the year. It can be possible. We're climbing within like 937. I hope no one unsubscribes in that time.
Like 937.
Yeah, I hope no one unsubscribes in that time period. But like 937, we're on, so hopefully help us get to 1,000. And StrangeCast is also available on all podcast services as well. Spotify, which includes a video version on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon, we're on everything. So, do check us out on there as well. Continuing to grow on there as well. Got quite a lot of listeners on the podcast services, which is good. So, guys, we are back. We will kick things off with one of the more interesting pieces of news that happened this week. Came out again, out of nowhere. And we're going to go to IGN Southeast Asia, which is where I got the link from. But I need to clarify something else with this as well, which I will do at the end. But the news was that Life is Strange developers can't imagine going back to an episodic release model. So this was from IGN. It was Life is Strange True Colors was the first game in the series to be released as a full package, sidestepping the episodic release that the franchise was built on. Now the developers can't imagine going back. During an interview with Rock Paper Shotgun, senior narrative designer Philip Lawrence explained why the team wanted to try something new with the Life is Strange sequel, which was separated into distinct chapters but released as a single package. He said, and I quote, "I can't imagine we'd go back to the episodic model. The reaction has been very positive. I think we were careful to keep that episodic structure because that does seem to appeal to players. That's all part of the DNA of Life is Strange. As you can imagine, it was a decision that was talked about and agonized over quite a bit, but I think on reflection, it was the right decision," end quote. Life is Strange True Colors was released in 2021, telling the story of Alex Chen, a girl who develops a supernatural ability for empathy. It was the first Life is Strange game from developer Deck 9. First full Life is Strange game, sorry. Oh, I was about to say then, yeah. Who took on development duties from series creator Don't Nod after creating Life is Strange before. So again, in this article, Don't Nod, spelt the old way. As I said in the last episode when we were talking about it, branding is a hard thing to break with this.
I know.
Although the game, I know it's very difficult, isn't it? Although the game stepped away from the episodic releases, it nevertheless retained natures of TV storytelling, unveiling the plot in a structured way. Lawrence said, and I quote, "It's partly about player choice. We were careful to structure a story around the 5 chapters so that structurally it feels in line with very earlier Life is Strange titles," end quote. Let me keep reading this. Yeah, but near then. Structured more like a limited series than a video game, Life is Strange True Colors gives players the opportunity to binge the entire game or take it at their own pace. Lawrence added, and I quote, "So if players want to step back, reflect, and have those water cooler moments with the community, they can. But for those who would be frustrated by the episodic release pattern, we save them from those frustrations," end quote. Thinking of it this way, Life is Strange True Colors is more like a box set than a weekly episodic, making... Okay, I'm not going to read that. That's boring. That's IGN's from that. One more thing as well from Lawrence, which was, I think from a creative point of view, it allowed us to concentrate on developing the story, getting the script into a great position, and then producing a game. So we didn't have that awkwardness of the episodic model, where you're rushing to production on the scripted content for the first episode and then moving on to the next one. Approaching it this way is a lot more coherent and organic, I think. So that was the interview. So let me just clarify couple more things, Adam, before we start talking about this. So the Rock Paper Shotgun interview, Philip Lawrence was interviewed, and also Sarah Van Rompeay. I hope I got that right. And
I hope you did too, because Luke's going to come after you.
Rompeay, I think it's that. So they are respected the senior narrative designer and senior producer at Square Enix External Studios. So they aren't Deck 9 specifically. Square Enix External Studios works on the Life is Strange games with the other developers. So just to clarify, it's not Deck 9 who's specifically saying it, even though Deck 9 did tweet it as well. It's like, whatever said is said, and it's not like it's in a bad kind of way. And then just a quick couple of pointers on that interview, which I'm trying to open because I don't want to like talk about it. So in that interview, there was also talking about key taking away points were can't imagine going back to episodic model after the success of True Colors. Powers will always be part of the experience. Life is Strange will continue to be about emotions. Motion capture will evolve the experience in the future titles. So, Adam, I will let you kick it off because you sat there quietly for a while whilst I've been running all the way through that. How do you feel about this news?
So, a couple things I want to point out. One is the powers thing. They kind of in that interview, it kind of seems like they don't really like the whole like superpowers dynamic. They more like the real time feel of a power. So like a power of human emotion, which is kind of, I don't know how I feel about that because, you know, on one hand, they did handle it well in True Colors. I think the powers or the real time emotions, it was implemented well, but at the same time, with Life is Strange 1 and 2, I think the superpowers played a big role, whereas a sci-fi kind of feel almost like a Heroes kind of dynamic, but with like real-time emotions. So I don't know. I think they're kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater in that kind of way. So I mean, it's not really my decision to make. You know what I mean? It is the artists, but that's kind of like a nitpick for me. Or it's just kind of
just to put you on that point as well, do you think that they prefer the powers that they had in True Colors because True Colors is more grounded than Life is Strange 1 and 2?
Yeah, and I think that's just Deck 9's sort of artistic take on things. Because look at Before the Storm. Before the Storm didn't have any powers, really. We didn't really confirm if Rachel had powers or not. He's just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. I don't think even Kylie Brown knew. So it's just kind of like... you know, I think that's just not their artistic take on things, and then that's not their fault. And that's kind of like my nitpicky thing. If an artist doesn't really depict a story in a superpower kind of way, more power to no pun intended, more power to them. But and that's just kind of a nitpicky thing. I just, you know, let's just let the artists tell a story that they want to, and it just seems like Deck 9 doesn't want to do superpowers, right? That's my nitpicky thing. The Episodic. Let's talk about this for a second. I want to bring up a tweet that was in Dom the Bomb's comment section on his Twitter, right? And this is from @Evan64M, who says, not doing episodes is going to hurt them in the long run, probably. Part of what made the first game such a success was that people could theorize and discuss what they thought was going on what they thought was going to happen next, and it cultivated a large online fan community, and I think that was part of its success. And I think
is that your burner account?
Yeah, my burner account is Scatterbrain. No, I fully agree with this person. Like I remember when he sent me the notes, I was like going through the comments, seeing what people thought, and that one struck out to me because I think that's what created that community, because like you're going on Reddit, you're going on other forums, you're going on lifeisstrangefans.com, and you're trying to like cultivate this, like what do you think is going to happen in the next one, and you have weeks, sometimes months, to really think about it, theorize about it, podcast about it, and just like really start to talk to people about it. But when you don't have that anymore, you know, it's just all a box set. Now everybody's just kind of binging the game, like they're just binging in a day, and there's no real need to theorize, and there's no real need for a community.
So we got quite a lot of interesting that's an interesting tweet in itself. And I've got like a lot of interesting perspectives on this, because one, obviously I'm an episodic merchant. I'm a nostalgic merchant for that. I love that era of gaming. It was great.
Yes,
but there's also my Achilles heel at this point, which is I don't think it works anymore, because not many studios do it now, if any, in the last 3 or 4 years. Like, it was a trend, and it brought down Telltale heavily because they just didn't evolve. The company just didn't really change. Like, there's no kind of like, it's a great idea at its time, but then it causes like in itself development issues, like how long the game space out. Look how spread out Life is Strange 2's episodes were. Look at how Life is Strange 1 hit pretty much all of its episode windows except for 5, which was more or less delayed a little bit. there was like a development side of it which kind of impacts it. So it's like, you know, I can understand it from that argument. I also think it's about consumer trend, which is basically now we are currently living in the Netflix day and age, which is truly in its, you know, peak era where it's like we get everything. So you watch on Disney Plus, you get all your episodes now. Like sometimes they do it with Netflix where they try to experiment weekly episodes in their kind of catalog because they've already got you signed up. They can try and release an episode week by week and kind of like create an original content. But I don't know how much of the success is going to lie on that because kind of people want all 10 episodes lying at their feet and then kind of just going with, you know, watching it at their own pace. If they want to watch all of it at the same time, they can do that, or they can wait, whatever. So like, I think that in itself does cause impacts with development. So I think like that's why I think that maybe they're like, we don't want to go back to the episodic model. Again, I'm really keen for it, but I can kind of see why the reasons you wouldn't go for it. And I think like in itself, one of the things that they did mention in there was like the development process of it, which would cause a bit of chaos in terms of doing. Cause imagine like trying to do one episode, then moving on to the next one, and then doing motion capture sessions, then trying to call Erica Mori in, or call Stace in, or call Han Soto in, and trying to do it like a different kind of days, and all the kind of like hectic scheduling it can cause, rather than just focusing, you know, fully for the better part of 3-4 years, however long you put the development in, and you can create the entire game without any kind of fear of like, oh, we're going to be a bit delayed on this game, we're going to be delayed on this part of the chapter.
Well, I think there's production things you can do to like prevent all of that. Again, it's all about evolution of the way you produce a game. You can always like get the lines from these actors and then put it in.
But again, though, that's the thing. Like Life is Strange 1 and 2 were body motion capture, same with Before the Storm. The Telltale games were body motion capture. If they did do body motion capture, they did body motion capture. None of it was full motion capture because you're doing the lines along with everything else. So you need everything in place to kind of like go along with things. I think like was it Jerome? I think someone said in the last episode of a StrangeCast, like when we were talking about Michelle's tweet about how far they're in development, they suggested that sometimes it does say that a game is quite far into development if they're recording lines at that point, which in itself was like, yeah, it is true. It can be early on in project, or you can do it quite far into the project where you start recording lines of the characters to see if they work. And one of the more interesting things with that tweet you mentioned is the fact that, yeah, it was a big thing with the episodic model. It really helped create the fandom with the games. It created it with this game. It created it with Telltale games. It created the kind of like, oh, what's going to happen in the next episode? The cliffhanger setup. Life is Strange 1 had that kind of success with it because it was so Twin Peaks-esque kind of mystery thriller, all those kind of like genres that were kind of melding with it. But as soon as you finish one episode, you're like, oh, what's going to happen in the next one? You're talking about the communities that were built. It also, because of how niche it was as well, it started capitalizing on the success of people like Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. These people influenced so many people to play the game, and that took their kind of like appeal of the game to like there. Like as I said, I was covering this in like 2015, early 2015. Not many people were talking about it, and then it just went whoosh, and it took off. Yeah. It was like I always called it the sleeper hit of 2015, and it was because it was like that. The marketing was barely anything from Square Enix, and it was like by the time that it started to hit into its like later era of it, it was like
I was working. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I was working in GameStop when the game was coming out, and people were asking me like, "What? So, like, what is Life is Strange?" I'm like, "Bro, I work here. I researched it. I don't even know." Like before it released, I was like, "I don't even know how to describe it to you. It's weird." Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. It never had that kind of like, you know, everyone's like going out at launch and buying it. It's like it built momentum. It was a slow burn, and it built momentum, and it helped with that. And I think a big part of it was again like the episodic model. Like people watched Let's Plays. Rest in peace, they aren't really done that much anymore, but people watching like Let's Plays at the time, they kind of helped the marketing, they kind of helped with pushing content out there. So it is a hard one, but I think you do have to turn your back on it. But my criticism does come on to the point with True Colours, where it's like the chapter sections aren't that strong, because it's like the 5 chapters, and they're quite weak in certain senses, like they're not as strong. If you're going to do it 5 chapter model, you have to make the big game bigger, because if you're doing a fully fledged game, it felt like almost Life is Strange True Colours was almost like a season pass game. Like the first Life is Strange 1 and 2, where it's like, why has it got a $60 retail price slapped on it? It's like, why is it? Can you really justify this? I know the production value's there; it's great, it's motion capture, etc. It's trying to be AAA, all that other good jazz. But is it really up to that scratch of it? It's like almost like I feel like if you're gonna leave episodic gaming behind, go completely abandon it and just go for a chapter segment like you've done, but just do 3 chapters of the game. Just do that.
Yeah.
Like do 3 chapters and epilogue, and maybe like change the structure of it and change the cohesive structure model of it. Because otherwise, then it does start to cause a bit of issues with people. I think I can kind of see where I didn't really have the episodic vibe with True Colors, even though they were trying to keep that in some senses.
And that's what I mean, though. It's just like there is definitely things you can do in production stage that you can plan this out. I mean, there's so many things you have to do in the production stage. You have to do the pre-production. You have to actually write out a roadmap here, see how you can involve. It's not really a rush thing. You have to like do these things as a management. Now to that point, right? When I say that, they did probably have a pre-production meeting. They probably wrote out the roadmap, and they're like, "This is not viable in today's game market." So they just said, like, "Listen," and I like how once again, like, I don't know, it just feels like sometimes Deck Nine blames the fans, for their decisions rather than saying like, "Hey, for us to put out a great game, we want to do it this way." But again, it's like, "Oh, the fans, I think they'll prefer it this way. I think this. I'm like, did you really do the research here, or is this Square Enix like in your ear? You know what I mean? It's just kind of like
that's. I always appreciate this podcast is no unfiltered, because I'm not expecting anyone to send us anything or want anything from it. I like the fact that, and I hope people appreciate that we're unfiltered about our opinions with it. Like, we don't pander to the developers or publishers, even though I know quite a few of them. I have nothing against developers, no issues. And I feel like Deck Nine does get a bit of a bad rep. Like, they are in a sometimes lose-lose situation, because people always have an affinity with the Don't Nod games. A lot of the characters that sometimes they're dealing with from Life is Strange 1 are Don't Nod developed characters. It's just hard. It's a hard sell. Like, if for example, I made like the next sleeper hit of like the Sentry, and then I leave the project and you come onto it, who's to say people are really going to like you handling what I've created?
Yeah, exactly. No,
you're also releasing an album. Drop there, plug. You're also releasing an album. What happens if I come over and I'm like, yeah, I want to do the sequel to this, and I steal all the kind of like samplings and stuff like that, and you're listening there, I'm stepping all over your art for it. So it's like, I understand that. So I kind of see from Deck Nine's perspective.
Exactly. It's a messy thing, and that's why I said in the beginning, it's like, let an artist do their own take. Which again, this is why I'm a big defender for The Last Jedi, because I think they set up Rian Johnson for a complete failure. They're like, hey, do a movie about a franchise that George Lucas made, but in the style of J.J. Abrams, and go. And it's just like, can I do it Rian Johnson style? If you want to, but please do it the way J.J. Abrams set it up. All right, go. And it's just kind of like, that's why I think The Last Jedi failed so hard, because they said to an artist, take this IP that was from the 70s and then match it with a director that is so in love with solar flare, and maybe put in a little touch of yours, and then go. It's set up for failure. So I think that's why a lot of people are upset with Deck Nine, because like they took an IP that is beloved by fans and it's very heartwarming, right? But then Square Enix comes in the way of that. I just think Deck Nine is just set up for like fan failure, or fan backlash, just because it's no style.
Yeah, they are in a hard position. They kind of get caught in the firing line more than Square Enix. Like, Square Enix is the publisher making the executive decisions. If Deck Nine suggests something that's against it, then Square Enix will overrule them. Like, you have to always remember that. So that's why I have no issues with Deck Nine. I really appreciate Deck Nine as well, especially people like Webb, when he was there doing the co-directing on Before the Storm. Same with Chris Floyd when he was doing the co-directing Before the Storm. They had a hard time with a lot of fans. Some of them were really coming at them with like, oh, you're not done this, and like this kind of thing's a bit different with Victoria. It's like, but again, like there's only so much like what they're doing, and what the executives of like top branch are saying, or like what they want, and like continuity is going to be a very hard issue. Like, even some devs go back to the wikis that game fans have made to kind of like research what's happened with their games, like, because it's like they need to kind of sometimes they might forget that, if like HyperfX be like Victoria's left-handed, they might forget that, and they might make her right-handed. Like, it's one of those things, like, who's going to really remember that? You just do it as a kind of thing of like you're creating the time. So they do have a hard time with it, but I think with this kind of interview, and it's called, again, like, it's come from Square Enix External Studios. They do work on the Life is Strange games with Deck Nine, with Don't Nod before. I think like in the direction that Deck 9 is going to go. I think Deck 9 is going to try and cement its position on Life is Strange, saying it's a new direction of the series. We're going to kind of keep the essence of what Don't Nod created, where it's like, as I said in the interview, like, you know, powers will always be part of the experience. That will be there. But we're going to do our own kind of thing with it, where it's not episodic anymore. We've gone past the era of episodic gaming. We're also going to make the emotions kind of angle more of our kind of stamp on Life is Strange. If you're going to play a Deck 9 developed Life is Strange game, it's going to have emotions in it. And I think Deck 9 will keep working with Square Enix for a while on these games, and eventually will part its ways, just as Don't Nod has as well. Because as you've seen as well, Deck 9 is working The Expanse. I imagine there's big ambitions for a developer like that. They kind of want to be the, you know, one of the powerhouse developers, like, you know, in the same vein as like a Naughty Dog or a Rockstar. I'm not saying that they will become like them, but like as the same kind of like independent entity as a studio, like a big studio where they can kind of make games, diversify games, not just be quote unquote the Life is Strange studio. And just to kind of put on the one point, which is that motion capture will evolve the experience more in future titles. That's a big win for me, because it should go full performance capture going forward. Webb was one of the most outstanding factors of that game, because his role as performance director made everything shine. He made the music sing. That goes down to the performances from the actors as well. So I think like it takes gaming into the next era. Like, that's not to say like video games can't have just voice actors and you have mocap done somewhere else. You can do that. But I think with these kind of games, and especially if you're banging on the point about emotions, you're going to have to bring it out. And I think you kind of come more in tune with your characters as well. Like, I think if you become the body mocap for it, and you're doing the performance capture as well, and on top of that, and you're doing the voice, I think you'll feel like you're connected to your character a bit more, rather than just standing in a booth and reading these lines for a character that you're not being able to connect with. So I think like it gives, for me, from perspective for the actors, I think it gives it urgency and kind of like a resonation with who you're playing. You kind of get into those roles. Like, look at those scenes in True Colors. Like, I've criticized True Colors before. I've always said that I think it's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. I think it's a good game, which for me, don't distinguish that me saying, oh, it's an average. It's a good game. And it has those scenes where Jed and Alex are interacting, the scenes with like Diane and Alex, you know, the scenes with like Steph and Alex, like they're great. They have some like really urgent scenes where it's like, you know, feel the emotions, and that's because the actors who are playing them in mocap really bring it out. And then, as I said before, great performance director doing it. So hopefully, like, you know, for many more years, Webb is involved with these projects, whether it's Life is Strange 1, whether it's with Deck 9, whatever it is, because this will really help the series, and I think it's part of the direction they should go with it.
Oh yeah, no, I fully agree. But yeah, we'll see. It all boils down to me of just like whatever Deck 9 wants to do to say their story. Let's go for it. I think it's all just nitpicky from this point, but I think an artist should just depict the story that they want to tell. You know,
Yeah,
for Deck 9,
absolutely.
and I hope we don't hate them too much.
No, we don't. I don't have any beef. I think if you go after developers, it's
No,
it's
they retweet
personal.
our
Like,
stuff, so it's good stuff. You know.
I like them as well. Like, some of them have got, like, you know, the developers have got genuine hearts for them as well, and it's never. I just find it weird when people come after them, because it's like they're only making what they've been given, and always remember there's an overlord, a publisher who's making the executive decision. So maybe something that you didn't like, that's maybe down to the publisher. But
That's
I think
every industry though, so
yeah, exactly. So I think we've tackled that quite a lot, and we'll go
Yes.
into another segment. Oh my god, I can't actually believe how entertaining this, but I saw this on line, and then I saw it on Reddit as well, and Adam screenshotted this section for me. So it was a potential Life is Strange 4 rumor with a tag on Reddit which says grain of salt. I wish you should definitely take this with grain of salt.
yeah, we're gonna
Opening
fly through
s-
this news point.
yeah.
So
Opening section. I have no real proof that this source is reliable. So just assume that there's a 99% chance that this is bullshit. So like, already take yourself away from this. But I heard from someone that's tested the game that Life is Strange 4 is coming, and Max will once again be the main character. Apparently,
no,
apparently,
I'm already out of it. Like I'm already done.
apparently, she's a professor at an art school, and her powers have been upgraded so she can travel to alternate realities and use that to solve mysteries. It also follows the choices that you made in the first game, and Chloe can make an appearance if you kept her alive. Story spoiler. The basis of the story is that she's investigating a murder of a friend/student of hers. She steps between the realities and ends up... Sorry, I can't take myself seriously. Just
Dude.
give me a second. She steps between realities and ends up finding a friend alive in an alternative timeline and uses that to solve the murder. there will apparently be other people with powers in the game as well.
My God.
The first half of the game is supposed to be amazing, but not the second half. Hopefully they'll fix it before release, though. As a Life is Strange fan, I think this could be awesome. But only time will tell if this ends up being real. I'm really sorry for the laughing, but I just couldn't.
It's like, not time will tell. This is not happening. Like, you sent me this, right? And I read the first paragraph, like, 99% chance this is bullshit. I'm like, okay. I read the first sentence of the second paragraph. Apparently, she's a professor I was like, nope, I'm already out. Like, she's a professor at an art school. So we're going to go with the fucking... Oh, sorry. I'm not supposed to curse on this podcast. Sorry.
No, you can't. We're always explicit on podcasts, so don't worry.
I know, but I'm personally trying to stop cursing as much, so it is what it is. But not that it's bad to curse. Just fuck off. But apparently she's a professor. So we're going to go with the Scrubs dynamic. We're going to go with a boy meets world dynamic where it's girl meets world and Corey's a professor.
Let's address this in an interesting way, because you're making really good points, because there's so much that I know you can see it. But let's go through sentence by sentence at this point. I feel like we can have a funny conversation, right? So I'm a journalist by trade, worked in the video game industry, still working a journalism role now in my time outside of this channel and stuff. If your opening sentences, I have no real proof that this source is reliable. For example, 101, I can't come and publish a story if I say that the source is there's no source, it's not reliable. It might not, there's no real proof for it. So that in itself, you can't substantiate this.
I have no real proof. It's just like, so why did you put it on this Reddit then?
Exactly.
Game leaks, rumors. Like, then it's not a game leak. It's just some friend of yours like, it would be cool. And just like, what the fuck? No. No.
And then the second part of that section, if you took away the word so, but put but just assume that there's a 99% chance that it is bullshit. Anything before the word but is bullshit. So they've changed the word but to so here in the first sentence. Just to pretty much, and then reiterating the fact that it's bullshit. So that in itself, on top of it, is so stupid. So let's just address that, yeah?
Yeah.
And you said that as well. So, and then on top of that, but I heard from someone that the game is being tested, right? They have sent that survey out that we talked about, where they're asking about the future of Life is Strange. And they'll be like, yeah, you know what? Like, we are pitching for ideas, want to know where the fandom is, etc., all that. But you're saying that someone's testing the game. That's far into development.
You know what? Make a good point, because what if this person just isn't a good writer? Like, instead of saying but or just, what if this friend of his, instead of saying tested the game, took a survey of a pitch of an idea, right? So like they took this like whisper down the lane kind of thing, and they took, oh yeah, I went through the survey, they pitched me this idea, and then this person who's now becoming a amateur journalist put it as tested the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there could be like, you could be right about like, this could be from the survey that was put out, but it wasn't a test. This is kind of like, what if she was a professor? Kind of like how Scrubs was. Remember that? It's like,
yeah,
no.
It's the second part. Like, Life is Strange 4 is coming. We don't know. There's no kind of news on it. I imagine that the next Life is Strange I imagine it's probably been put into development at some point. Maybe it's early development. We don't know. And Max will once again be the main character, right? As much as we've talked about Max not being in future Life is Strange games, or maybe I could see Max back as the main character. There's something that I know. Sure. Not like this is conjecture. This is not like some insider knowledge. There's something that I kind of have heard in the last couple of months, and something that would make me question that could be part of it true. That could be Max.
Can you prove that your source is real? Can you prove it?
Well, you were there as well, but we'll speak about this after the podcast as well. Yeah, it's just something that was kind of like a lingering part. It was cut from something else, so it's like I have a feeling that could be partly true, but again, that doesn't confirm that could be true either. There's nothing that there's that idea is something that could happen, but would be a little bit, would catch me by complete surprise. Would really like make me fall off my chair if it happened. Then. Obviously, we attack the next part, which you've obviously mocked a lot. The fact that she's a professor in art school and her powers have been upgraded so she can travel to alternate realities and use that to solve mysteries. Like, she's already been able to travel to alternate realities in the comics, which this feels like really ripping off the comic idea, if anything. You don't need to upgrade her powers from that. Why the fuck is she a professor in art school? Like, that again, like that's just an weird thing of doing it. And the next part of it as well, it also follows the choices you made in the first game, and Chloe can make an appearance if you kept her alive. We know even with Deck 9 games that canon isn't official with this game, like any of the games. Like there's always one alternative choice that they go from the first Life is Strange. In the comic series, it's a potential story following on from what happened in the game. Like this one hypothetical scenario of what can happen after it. Same with like any other Life is Strange game. They always ask you, have you played the other ones, etc. All this. Yeah. No substantiation in that they would never go straight canon. I just don't think that would happen.
No, absolutely not.
The story spoiler is just written by someone who wants to just write bad fan fiction. Like, why is she investigating a murder of a friend of students? That just sounds like a rehash of the Rachel Amber stuff, or in kind of completely different ways. Ends up finding a friend alive in alternative powers, like solve murder.
See, this kind of looks like if they're going off of Twin Peaks in the first one, this kind of feels like almost like Broadchurch. In a way, if they're going to go off of like a British murder kind of weird thing, this kind of feels like Broadchurch, where a murder happens and you're just trying to figure out who in the town did it. So if there is kind of like if this is a true thing and they're going off of like a story basis, Broadchurch, that's what I'm thinking. But she finds her friend alive in an alternative timeline. No wonder. Yeah, it's an alternative timeline where she's alive. No crap. It's like, what are you talking about? If that is really a story basis, I'm like,
she ends up finding her friend alive in an alternative timeline and uses that to solve the murder. But you're in the alternative timeline. How is that going to solve the murder?
She doesn't get murdered. So,
but how is it? Yeah. How is it going to solve the murder in the other timeline? Like,
because like it's alternate. So like the person who murdered her is also an alternate personality. So that person's not going to murder this person in the first place. Oh, this just sounds like, if this is real, this just sounds like a headache of a.
We're getting. Yeah, it is, and we're getting to the even more funny parts. Like, there will apparently be other people with powers in the game as well. It's not been done yet in Life is Strange yet. It could happen down the line, but again, too far away from it. This is on the top of it. If you've already not convinced that the first 3 paragraphs are all obviously BS and everything else like that, and grain of salt, rumor, and everything else, is the fact that this sentence then follows it. The first half of the game is supposed to be amazing, but not the second half. Hopefully they'll fix it more for the release. You're suggesting that this game is almost in its completion. Who the fuck is making this game?
Exactly. You didn't say who or what developer or anything. You don't know what you're. Here's the thing. I think this came down to a friend of a friend took the survey. This is an idea they pitched. Here's the idea that they told the whole story. They heard the screenplay. The second half of the screenplay doesn't seem great. So this is kind of a whisper down the lane kind of situation where I think this person is just an amateur journalist, writer, can't really communicate it well. So I think you're right in your first statement where I think this is basing off of, this could be a pitch from that survey. This could be, and it's not a test. It was just some friend who heard this pitch, and I swear to God that if this is all into fruition, I'm gonna lose it. I really hope
it's
not. There's no way.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I've actually seen a website cover this as news. Like, it's actually a news story on their website, which is baffling for me. Because even if I was reading this back in the industry, I would be like, no. 2, I'd go and contact Square Enix, and I'm pretty much convinced that Square Enix is going to say, we don't comment on, stories. Yeah.
What if? Hey, Adnan, you still with me? You still with me? What
Just
if this is the Don't Nod Montreal VHS tapes game? What if she goes back in time with VHS tapes? It's an alternate timeline in the 80s. What if, Adnan, stay with me now. What if we're making fun of our favorite developers right now, and this is the 80s VHS tape?
And,
you
and
saying?
with that suggestion, we're moving on to our next topic. We're done at this point. I am not entertaining this. Right? No, I'm sorry. We can't carry that conversation on. It's just I'm losing the will
It's
to live. And
ridiculous. It's total bullcrap. Don't believe this rumor. It's not happening.
oh my god, it's not
There's
happening.
no way.
It's just I just read it and I was like, huh?
Yeah.
It's like,
the first
you know,
sentence
it's
of the second
not even-
paragraph. I'm like, no.
It's not even substantial. Like when the True Colors leaks were happening, they made sense. It was like, oh, this is actually, that might be characters
so
called Alex,
common.
you know.
Like saying, like, it's worth noting that we had rumors before True Colors was announced that including specific and accurate details of the game, and also mentioned they were looking to do direct sequel to Life is Strange 1. No, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything because those leaks were actually viable. This leak is nothing. This is nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It's dumb, and we need to move on to our next topic, which is always a fan favorite segment. Easily, I don't know if it's a fan favorite segment. It's a fan favorite for us, which is that Life is Strange's Twitter account on the 11th of August tweeted, a new patch is now available for Life is Strange Before the Storm Remastered on Steam and Stadia, including fixes to color degradation. We are working towards patches for other platforms to be coming soon. In a follow-up tweet, they put other fixes in this patch contain fixes to instances of quality option, animation and T-posing bugs on Steam, and fixes to instances of blockers, white screen, clipping, lip sync, UI and button prompt bugs on Stadia. 2 out of 2 tweet. That's the second tweet. Oh my god. Oh, this is like, for me, this is like an example, and I'm going to be, as I said, we're a very unfilled podcast. This is for me why I feel like so bad for Deck 9, because they get so much of a bad rep for this, but they were basically just given the game, they developed it, and whether it was an executive decision for Square Enix to get it out early, to get movement ahead of it, this game should not have seen the light of day for at least a year or so, if not more. There are so many issues with it. If you go back on YouTube now, and before all these other patches have come in, you can see the scenes that we were talking about where they had issues. I think it's the one with, like, Dana, where it's like her earrings twinkling during the scene where Rachel walks into the school. Like, it's just, there's so many. Why? Oh my god. Is this even out on Switch yet?
Nope. We don't even know a Switch, and we never even got a Life is Strange True Colors Switch announcement. Like, we got the announcement, but we haven't gotten a date at all.
Was this you when you said that we might not see this game ever see the day of light?
No, like what I was saying was, like, if it's this bad on other platforms, if they can't even tell us when the date is for the Switch, right? How terrible is it for the Switch? Like, how bad? Like, all we're asking for is an old 2015 game, 2016, 17. Before the Storm was 17, I believe. Yeah? Okay, whatever. But we're getting these old games on the Switch, like we've gotten with other Switch ports, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't even have an announcement for a release date. The other thing that's worrying me right now is that in the Life is Strange Twitter, and I was like kind of scrolling through, we only get patch notes for the Before the Storm Life is Strange remaster collection. We never get patch notes for True Colors. We never get these patch notes for, like, well, like with True Colors, we fixed this, we fixed this, we fixed this. It's only about the remaster. It's about the remaster. How is this possible? How is this possible? How is this possible? Like, it's wild. It's too much for me, man. Like, I can't do this.
Just, like, you look at the comments and you read through them. It's like, and you just see it, like, the frustrations there with the game. Like, oh my god, there's, like, so many issues with it.
Yes.
Like, there's that video. Have you seen this video in there as well? With static imaging going across the screen.
Yes, I do.
Like, there's loads of them. There's like, I'm like, look at this. If you just go on tweet, for example, if you're listening, like, go on tweet and on the Life is Strange Twitter account, the amount of replies here that people are just like, what is even going on here? I don't get how this game came out this year after it was initially delayed. You know, Adam, we were like talking about it last year, and can you still hear me?
Yeah, no, I can.
You're just like really deep. You just feel really deep into something. I was like, oh shit, have I lost him? Right. Anyway,
no,
I continue.
I'm like looking on. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, True Colors did come out on the Switch. I'm stupid. I'm an idiot.
No, yeah, it came out this. Yeah, it was. I think it was delayed from last year, and it came out this year. And then these came out this year. This was delayed because it was part of.
Life is Strange. I'm on Nintendo.com. Life is Strange Remastered Collection releasing in 2022. Just 2022, maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
We're in August now.
We are in August, and it's still on the Nintendo. Like, I'm deep into this because I'm just like, did we even get a release date? And it's like, no. Like, they're still patching it for Stadia. They're still patching it for Stadia. And Stadia is supposed to be like the primo edition. No updates, no patches. Blah, 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 blah. And just like, we're still updating for Stadia.
This was just a secondary edition to sell Life is Strange True Colors in the Ultimate Edition. There was not a huge amount of care and attention put into it. The amount of bugs that we talked about, the amount of issues that were in there, the amount of like somewhat unnecessary changes in the first Life is Strange ones, other ones that which were I wasn't really fussed with, like, you know, I've said about the bottles, I think that's kind of nice feature that they added in there, etc. Some issues I'm not bothered with. Other ones that were issues, like with Max crying at the end of the scene, they put the loading screen in at the beginning of the episode, like of the first game. Like, there were just like so many issues with it, but there's like issue after issue after issue after issue, and then you kind of sit there. You had Don't Nod developers sitting there thinking like, what is going on here? Where they were like, wait a minute, what's going on with this game that we developed and you've remastered it and you've changed this and that. You've taken the credits away and put them into the main menu without considering if it's all the credits from all the episodes with the freelancers we worked with. Then in itself, we played it. The frustration that was growing on us when we played it, we reviewed the episodes, the kind of littering of bugs that we encountered across different platforms, different issues, the fact you could turn subtitles on it, it just had the coding for the subtitles. There were no subtitles in the actual game because there was that kind of issues.
On the Xbox version, I had no issues.
Well, yeah, but you're the only person playing on Xbox. That joke never gets old for me. But it was frustrating because, like, as I said, I enjoyed parts of it. It looked really nice at certain times. Yeah. Certain times it looked nice. At times the lip syncing was great as well. It felt nice, but then it just felt like, you know, it just felt like someone put out a half-assed product. And I'm not taking that as a dig at Deck. I'm talking about the publisher doing it, because the publisher is at the helm of this. It's an executive decision on this. This is why people get criticizing the QA teams and stuff, but it's the publisher's decision to put this out. If they saw it and they were like, we need to hit a release window, that's why they did it.
Yeah. My God. I'm also looking at the comments of the Twitter, and Laura Lanford said, when are you fixing the bugs still present in Life is Strange Remastered? 1, Max's outfit in the beginning of episode 2 is wrong. Jefferson's outfit in episode 4 is wrong. Max shouldn't be crying in the ending. Why did you change the context by making her cry? I'm like, yeah, dude. Bro. Like, yeah, literally.
I saw Michelle tweet about that. We talked about it in the episode. And Michelle was like very like, and he was bang on with it as well. I remember reading it. It's like, yeah, his take makes complete sense at this point. It's like, why is she crying at this point? She's cried for the entire game. She's accepted it. It's acceptance. That's the entire point. You see Max is a very strong-willed woman at that point. She's held her own at this point. She knew that Chloe had to be sacrificed for this reason, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. It's all, you don't need to make someone cry for it. But again, that for me screams executive decision. That screams for me like, do you remember the Before the Storms layout, the colouring? That they changed the kind of like menu logos and stuff, again screams executive decision. It screams of like so many executive kind of influences. Let's go and change this, and let's do that, and let's do this, and let's do that. And it's like, well, you're just going to piss more people off from it, aren't you?
It's so frustrating. Now, like, probably in the fall, I'm probably gonna pick the remaster collection back up again, and I just want to see if it looks any better, if I get any glitches, if I get all the audio in each scene, because I remember like the audio cut off for me. I'm like, what the hell? So I might pick it up again in like September, and just to like play it through, and I'll report back to you like on this show. Like, because I'm not going to tell you to play it, but I'm like, I'm actually going to pick this game back up in like middle September. Probably play it through, since now I'm done the album and I got more time for games. But yeah, so it's
this comes out next week. Obviously, can you reveal who's on the album? Or are you gonna keep that quiet?
Yeah, well, actually, by the time this episode comes out, the album is released. So I was actually going to save it for Spread the Arts, but
fair enough. Actually, let's save it then. We'll save it then.
Yeah, okay. We'll save it for Spread the Arts. I'll let you all know.
Okay, I've intruded there, but yeah, okay, right. Okay, so I feel like I'm gonna move on from that subject as well, because I feel like I don't want to talk about the remaster collection. I won't go back to it until they fix.
Yeah. So
literally,
do a YouTuber thing like, so stay tuned for after the episode. Stay all the way.
Like, share, subscribe. This, turn the notification, and you'll find out when I do a replay on it. Anyway,
respect your mother.
We will move on, and we will talk about Square Enix news, which will tie into our main topic, because again, this was a topic we shelved months ago. Because I remember pitching it to Adam, and I was like, let's move it. Because this was following the Bungie acquisition, and also Square Enix selling off its previous studios. But again, Square Enix has provided an interesting assessment of its situation. So we're going to IGN here, and they've reported that Square Enix reportedly looking to sell off stakes in some of its remaining studios. So they said, IGN, and they wrote, Square Enix is reportedly looking to sell off stakes in some of its wholly owned development studios, and has said that Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal were sold because they quote-unquote cannibalized, end quote, from the wider group. Reported by games industry analyst Dave Gibson out of Square Enix's latest earning calls, the publisher reportedly sees the unexpected sale of Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal as quote-unquote phase 1, end quote, of its changes to the business.
So
phase 2 will
got it.
Of course, NFT business, Square Enix, I love it. Phase 2 will apparently see Square Enix reviewing its portfolio of owned studios, deciding whether to retain full ownership or allow other companies to buy stakes in those businesses. Per Gibson, the benefit of this would allow Square Enix to move resources around between studios more easily, and the view apparently towards being able to allocate quote-unquote resources mainly to Japan titles, end quote. Gibson expects the likes of Sony, Tencent, and Nexon to be interested in purchasing pieces of Square Enix's studio, and management once again expressed interest in acquiring new developers to increase its portfolio. The call reportedly also saw Square Enix explain that it made the decision to sell of its high-profile Western developers because the likes of Crystal Dynamic, quote-unquote, cannibalized, end quote, from the rest of the group, seemingly making resources harder to allocate across the whole development portfolio, presumably due to the high development costs of the likes of Marvel's Avengers. IGN has contacted Square Enix for a statement on these announcements. No reply. Square Enix's remaining development studios include its 4 creative business units, which make the likes of Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and the recent HD 2D line of games, Luminous Productions, Forspoken, Tokyo RPG Factory, I'm Setsuna, and Square Enix London Mobile Studio, Tomb Raider Reloaded, and more. Like the majority of gaming companies post-pandemic, Square Enix's latest earnings saw net sales for its gaming segment fall year on year, although the incredibly successful Final Fantasy XIV once again bucked trends by seeing net sales rise due to the increased number of monthly subscribers. Huge turnaround into Final Fantasy XIV as well. There's a big success story for them after like what happened as well, and the kind of exodus of Warcraft and all that, and the kind of like increase in that. I believe Michelle plays Final Fantasy XIV as well. I'm pretty sure he does as well. I think he became quite. I'd love to hear what he thinks about it more as well. But no, so this was the topic of it. This was the interesting topic because we're going to tie it into our topic, which was going to be that I was always said to Adam, like, could we see Life is Strange change hands and like potentially go into a completely different direction, whether it becomes a console exclusive, whether Square Enix sells off the property, whether a studio or a publisher, quote unquote, cannibalizes Square Enix. I use their phrasing as well. So let me kick things off, which is that I'm not surprised that Square Enix is selling off more of its studios. Its position for profitability is always questionable, especially from the Western releases of things. So the Embracer Group deal, I think they got pretty scammed out of that. They sold off a lot of stuff there. Stuff that I think that if they would have turned to Microsoft, turned to PlayStation, they probably would have taken. So for example, I think like PlayStation would have looked at the Sleeping Dogs IP and be like, we can actually use that and we can actually probably make something with that. What a great game. What a great game. I always bring up Sleeping Dogs. It's such a, oh my God, it's such a great game for the last decade.
If you haven't played Sleeping Dogs, stop it. Stop watching this. We'll save it to the end. Go to the end. Then play Sleeping Dogs. Stop it. Anyways, what are you saying?
No, thank you for that. We need to always put a Sleeping Dog plug in here.
Always.
So that's my kind of position with it. Like, I think that the Embracer Group deal, they sold off a lot of IPs. and it was quite questionable that they made that decision with it. As I said before, they've been very open about NFTs and the position that they want to do with that, which I'm always kind of like, I don't like NFTs. I hate them. Fuck off. Like, and that's me breaking the the cursing on this. I hate them. Stop it. Just stop it, industry. We don't want ads in video games. We don't want NFTs. Stop trying to milk every opportunity you can for money, right? So that's my other issue with this. Their position with Western games, we've already talked about it. You played Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. You loved it. But I've always said that they think that it's not a success of a game on their portfolio. They didn't see it as a success.
Like, every single Square Enix they release a game and they're like, oh, didn't meet expectations, didn't meet expectations, didn't meet expectations. And I'm just like, every game you put out doesn't meet your expectations. So maybe look at your expectations. I'm like,
yeah.
What do you want us to do?
Yeah, so, and itself as well, in the IGN article, it does say as well, they put Square Enix just sold off a treasure trove of studios and franchises. I do think they got rinsed for that. But in itself, on top of that, Gibson's expectations, he said that the likes of Sony would be interested in it. I think Sony is probably the biggest investor in Square Enix and could take the Life is Strange IP as an exclusive, not because they want Life is Strange, it's because what Square Enix holds, and that's Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is the gem for PlayStation. You've seen it with 7. They got the deals in with Square Enix. Final Fantasy is a big seller, especially in Japan as well. It has big market there. In itself, I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Spencer looked at Square Enix and was like, we could do this with Microsoft. Microsoft has always tried to break into the Japan market and challenge Sony. It's just struggled. It just doesn't seem to be able to concentrate. It has some great titles from great Japan developers before, but it's just never been able to break for that market. It could look at it. I'm going to take them off the table at this point, Microsoft, because I think that they're not going to try again unless Square Enix got itself in a position where it's like, oh shit, we might need to sell. And then they would be like, okay, let's move. But I think Sony's the more realistic one because Sony would do that. And I think they would go not just for its Western studios, they'd go for the full pie. And we've heard before in the past as well, rumors where Square Enix has denied that Sony's in a position to buy it. What deeply disturbs me with this news is the fact that Gibson has mentioned Tencent. I am very critical of Tencent. I've always said this as well, even though I like Don't Nod, I am very critical that Tencent has a stake in Don't Nod. It has a stake in Ubisoft now as well. It took that recently, if you saw the news, which again, I'm very critical with as well. I don't like Ubisoft as a publisher. And I think that even on top of that, the fact that they now have Tencent influence coming in there, worried as hell. Do not like Tencent as an entity. There's so many issues with them. So many issues with them.
It's just like my personal thing, but I've been on a personal boycott of Ubisoft because Yves Guillemot has refused to take leadership roles and actually change the dynamic in Ubisoft. So it's still a sexual harassment haven, and they're not protecting the workers over there. And Yves is still not stepped down as CEO. So until he steps down as CEO, I've been on a personal vendetta against Ubisoft. Haven't bought one. Haven't even played a Ubisoft game. So no, screw Ubisoft as a corporation. Screw Yves Guillemot. So, and now they have a stake with Tencent. So no, don't buy a Ubisoft game.
Yeah, not a chance. And in itself as well, like you just said there as well, they've had that issue. They've had an issue with like in sexual harassment is one thing, and then on top of that, they've had an issue with women as well. Do you remember when they said that in Assassin's Creed that we can't get a female animated character because the animations are a bit different? And then we have Evie Fry in Assassin's Creed. We have other female characters that appear. It's like, oh, it wasn't that difficult, was it?
It wasn't about the animation. They just said that female characters don't sell games.
Well, yeah, and that as well. And that
exactly.
As well. Yeah, they do sell. That's not even like a virtue signaling kind of thing either. If you can do the games with female characters, it was just not very well positioned the way their response. They should have said that we prefer doing male characters at this point, and the opportunity with a female character could come down the line. End of story. That's all you need to do with it. You should say traditionally the series have done male characters, but we would be very open to the idea of it. We might explore it down the line, etc., etc., etc. Done. It's just like, for me, it's like PR is just so easy to control. You just need to look at what you're going to say, like assess the room. And I think this is the problem with PR sometimes. They don't assess the room of what people are feeling. And if you just do it like that, it's easier. So let me just say that as well. Tencent's a worry. In itself, Saudi Arabia is a worry for me because they've had a slice of the pie in Nintendo. I'm not interested in these very questionable organizations getting involved with these publishers. So like the fact they mentioned Tencent, I could see Tencent coming straight in for Square Enix, going full in and buying it completely and just doing it. In itself, and I need to mention one more thing here, actually, and I'll give you the floor back. The Microsoft thing I mentioned before, The problem is with Microsoft. Microsoft probably wouldn't get Square Enix because Japanese studios and publishers don't sell to American businesses. They sell homegrown. So Sony would be in very much a controlling position in that. That's why it's always been difficult for Phil Spencer and Microsoft, because they can try and get the talent and stuff, like they can get some of the games, but they've never been able to wholly own Japanese studios to make those games that are like the ones that can tap into that market. And Japanese studios just and publishers very much don't do business with American businesses in terms of acquisitions like that. Because in itself, the Microsoft one with Activision still kind of being questioned to an extent. So it's like, one of those things. And I will disclose at this point, I am a Microsoft shareholder, so I don't want to bash on them too much for that. Like, it's just one of those things where I need to clarify that. It's just a position that I need to make transparent. But I think I will give you the floor here. Would you agree with me? Would you agree with me the fact that I think that Sony could take this as a PlayStation exclusive in the future because of the Final Fantasy part?
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like I'll be shocked if they don't. I think I'll be floored more than I was floored when Microsoft purchased Activision, right? I was floored with that, but if Microsoft actually acquires Square Enix, I'm done with the game industry. I don't know what to do because I still remember when Sony acquired Insomniac. I remember thinking I thought they were already acquired. It's like Insomniac and Sony were just so tight with each other, except for Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive, of course, being the Microsoft exclusive. Insomniac was in such tight cahoots with Sony that it only made sense that they went over to there. And it doesn't matter that Insomniac is now going to be exclusive to Sony because, they've really only made games that were exclusive. Aside from, like I said, Sunset Overdrive, Song of the Deep. Song of the Deep they developed, but that was also a platform kind of game. Insomniac and Sony, that was the thing. Same thing with Square Enix. Square Enix in Japanese games went well with Sony platforms. Now Nintendo and Square Enix were also in tight cahoots, right? Final Fantasy, I believe, started on the Nintendo console, so Nintendo and Square Enix are also in tight cahoots. But also, Nintendo's another Japanese owned company, right? So I really hope that, as an Xbox fan, okay, I really hope that they don't acquire Square Enix. I hope they don't, because I don't think Microsoft can handle something like Square Enix, right? I don't think Final Fantasy is going to be well suited for Xbox fans. It's suited well for Sony fans. PlayStation fans are already in love with Final Fantasy. I don't think Xbox fans are really Final Fantasy fans, honestly. And that might be a broad statement, right? But it's true. It's more of the action RPG fan base, whereas Sony, people who are in PlayStation, are more for that, JRPG kind of set. It would fit well over there. So, unfortunately, yes, Life is Strange might be exclusive to the PlayStation. It could be.
Yeah, because when you look at Life is Strange... Oh, no, continue.
No, I was just going to say the last point I was going to make, but Sony, you're already in a fan base of visual novels, right? People in the Sony market are fans of visual novels. People in Sony like those kinds of games, so I don't know. It would fit well over there anyway. I would just have to turn on my PlayStation, I guess, and play Life is Strange. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be a sweet moment. I think there's something with it, because it's with Life is Strange True Colors, it still has the appeal of the franchise. As I said before, I said on that previous podcast as well, that episode where I was with Max and Chloe one, I was they might go back to Max and Chloe in a last ditch attempt when the sales numbers start coming down. It's not as expensive of a game, Life is Strange True Colors, compared to the other games they make. It's not that expensive, so they can get away with sales numbers not being as high as a Final Fantasy. It'll never be as high as a Final Fantasy game, Life is Strange. It'll just be struggling to get to that. But if they try and put loads of money into it and then it commercially bombs, then it's a bad sign for Square Enix, because it needs to rely on successful IPs and successful sales, so they'll shelf the IP then at that point. I've always been worried about this as well, Square Enix, because if they shelf Life is Strange, then we won't see it for a while, and well, maybe we'll have to close this channel down as well for a little bit. But you know, we'll have to like, you know, there's that kind of issue with like Life is Strange, where I feel like it could get shelved by Square Enix because it doesn't do it. I don't think they're going to sell it yet. I think they're going to hold on to the IP because I think they still see value in it. If it does bomb, then they could be like, right, if the Embracer Group comes back again, they might be like, we have Life is Strange as a Western studio, as a thing, because like they can't sell off Deck 9. They just work with Deck 9. Deck 9 is its own independent developer. They can't sell off the in-house studio of it, but they can sell the IP off and then be like, right, we have Life is Strange. We don't want that. In itself, I could also see other scenarios, which includes that even Don't Nod is financed by Tencent, more so, and then tries to acquire the Life is Strange IP. Possible realm of that. It might be like a weird kind of deal with that. Yeah. But I could see Sony acquiring it, and then they would look at the assessment in the studio, because again, like as I said, their interest would be Final Fantasy. It would be the main one for them. That's what they want. That's what they're coming for. They'll sweep it. If it's on sale for Western developers and they're just selling the Western studios, for example, then it's or Western IPs, then it's a bit of a different story. But say if it's a full takeover, Square Enix is, you know, Sony is gunning for Square Enix and it's coming for it. It wants to take it over, do that. Then it will take the IP. It also makes me wonder about the unreal potential they have as well, because of all the first party studios that are at Sony that you could ship off Life is Strange to and be like, let's make a game here, let's make a game here. They might put it on the shelf. They might just leave it for a while. They might look at it completely rehauling it and doing something completely different with it. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised in the realm that something happens to Life is Strange within the next 5 years, whether it's a completely changing over of hands to Square Enix, away from Square Enix getting acquired by someone. There's quite like a lot of possibilities there in the realm, and that's what I'm entertaining at this point, because I think that it could happen with it. As I said, Square Enix always says very interesting things. It's like, we're in the business for NFTs, and it's like, yeah, but the gaming industry isn't in the business for NFTs. If you look at Troy Baker doing that, when he said that, oh yeah, you know, I'm doing an NFT, you saw the backlash with that. And it's like, people only take so much of it, and it's like, that's the kind of thing. Like,
I think the games industry is in the business of NFTs. You're thinking more of like the fans aren't in the business of NFTs.
That's
so
the
it's
one,
like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, the whole industry is going into. Okay, can I just say one thing? Can I just say that I really hate the games industry in its current state, where it's all about NFTs, selling IPs, selling studios, and we're just kind of all in the middle mix there. Like, what do
they all share in common?
What's that? NFTs and
the three that you just listed. What do they all...
Oh, you're talking about Tencent?
No, the three that you just mentioned there on your hand.
Yeah.
What do they all share in common? What's the one thing they bring in?
Divorce. Oh, money. Yeah, no, like that's the thing. But no, like to that point of divorce, like it does really feel like we're children in a side of divorce, and like it's all a courtroom kind of scenario where it's just like, well, my parents going over here, well, my parents going this way, well, we're gonna buy a house over here, and you're just like this child like that's just trying to enjoy video games, and we're all just like sitting here like, where's it gonna go now? Where am I gonna live? What's gonna happen? Who's gonna make me PB&J sandwiches? And it's just all like a mix where it's just like, you know, we just want to play a video game. We just want to play Ollie Ollie World. Like, why can't I just sit down, turn on my Xbox, and just play a video game without thinking about like what went into this? You know, like what kind of sale?
But Adam, the dynamics change though, because we talked about this off the podcast. I was mentioning about the Marvel kind of like the catalog and clutter that's been caused with like Netflix and Disney streaming and stuff. Do you not feel that's with video games now as well? Because like the appreciation, you turn on the Xbox, and hey ho, Games Pass loads up with all these games, but Adam just wants to play Ollie Ollie World. And it's the same with me. I have a PlayStation.
I've only been playing Skate 3 lately too. I've been just posting on Twitter. I've been just playing Skate 3.
Well, just skating games. You've been playing something simple, just a game that you want to entertain yourself, keep your value with, and that's it. And it's like with me, I have like, look at my catalog on PlayStation, the amount of games that I have on there that are like on the dashboard that I haven't even touched yet. I always load up and I'm like, my first words are, what am I going to play? And I'm like, I'm not even doing it in my traditional moaning way. I'm doing it in the sense that it's just cluttered now. I'm getting like thrown things. It's like here, like, do you like one thing after another? And instead, this is why, for example, I'm so excited about what Don't Nod Montreal is doing. I hope in every essence, what Luke and Michelle are doing in Montreal is the same vein as Life is Strange 1 in terms of the very indie aesthetic, a very small scale project, a very kind of ambitious kind of dream. That's what I like about video games at the minute. That's the kind of video game I want to play in the future. That's kind of like why I'm very selective with the games I buy now. I'm very, very selective. I haven't bought a Ubisoft game since 2014, since Watch Dogs was the biggest disappointment in the world. I haven't bought from big publishers anymore. I don't look at games and I'm like, oh, I need to play this game with a cat and it's from PlayStation. I'm bored of these kind of games. I want originality with my video games that I'm playing. I want something which is like, oh, you know, it's caught my attention, because like it's difficult to do that now, because we're currently in the day and age of people having the attention span about 15 to 20 seconds on TikTok, people watching things that aren't, you know, they're not gauging what they're consuming in terms of like they've consumed 15, 20 Marvel films, TV shows in the last 3 or 4 years, but no kind of like control assessment of I want to watch this one and this one, but I want to balance it out with something else. And this is the problem with in the kind of grander context of things, everything we've been talking about, what you've been talking about as well, is with Life is Strange as a property. It's like, yeah, it's nice, it's great to have it, but like there's no kind of like cohesive timeline for the future that we know of the series. It's kind of like it just randomly pops up. Then what happens if the sales aren't big? Then what happens if Square Enix changes strategy and wants to just go with its Japanese homegrown studios and kind of like go with the Japanese market instead of the Western games? You know, Square Enix can be very similar vibes of Capcom sometimes. With like how they position themselves with the games that they position, like, you know, the Resident Evil is a big seller, it's a big seller in Japan, you know, the Japanese horror games are important, but then when it has like Western studios, you're kind of a bit like, you know, it struggles to kind of penetrate the market. And you know, we've talked about that before with like Remember Me. It was a good game, it just commercially bombed for Capcom. And I feel that's way with Square Enix, because like, as we talked about, we didn't talk about the Embracer Group deal fully, but like you look at the selection of stuff that's in there. It's kind of like you know, you're hand over fist giving away all these kind of things, and you're like, huh, maybe you shouldn't have like just collected all these games. And like, it's not even necessarily the position that you haven't. Again, as I always say as well, people aren't reading the room. They would have, if they made a sequel to Sleeping Dogs 2, maybe it might not have sold as well, but maybe you scale down the budget a little bit and make it like a bit more of a concentrated game. It has a fan base. It might pick up more people. Let's do it. And we're in a business model of like, as you said, it's like, all those 3 things that you put on your hand, it's like everything's about money now. It's like, here's an NFT, here's DLC content, here's add-on skins, here's free-to-play, here's EA passes many years ago. All these things have been happening for the better part of 10 years, and it's like...
You know that Sleeping Dogs 2 would be an open-world RPG, too. You know it would be.
Damn,
it would be an open-world RPG.
I can only dream. But my concern is there with it, and I, as I said, like, you know, like it really makes me painful just to think about the idea of like the Embracer Group coming in and taking Life is Strange as an IP. If it would be collectively with our IPs if Square Enix was selling them off, it makes me worried about the Saudi government coming in, for example, as they have done with other studios and taking Life is Strange IP. Then at that point, you can eliminate all the kind of LGBT themes that are in Life is Strange as well. Same with Tencent as well, like Tencent coming in and taking a stake, like, and then the kind of like the strong resonance of LGBT in the video game series is gone. And it's like you're putting it in dangerous hands like that. And I don't want these kind of investments and from these kind of people in terms of the investment companies that have like really checkered histories to start taking these kind of IPs. And it's like it just makes me question so much about Square Enix when they're saying this is cannibalizing this is cannibalizing that. It's like, well, why don't you put a better strategy in place of like balancing this out?
Right. Yeah, no, it's
easier said than done, but like, you know,
it is easier said than done. It's definitely like the cat and the bell kind of situation, but no, it's just kind of like you know what's really bugging us really here? Like, when did this like acquisition thing all really start? Can we like make the argument that this all really started in like around the 2020 time? You know, when we're all like already exhausted. And corporations here's the thing. We have to look at the context too of just like all these sell-offs and stuff. It's all exhausting because 2020 was proven to make corporations much more rich while us, the common folk, were always screwed over. Like it was already reported that Walmart's, like the corporation Walmart, made like 7 times more profit than it ever has before, right? So all these big corporations have much more money in their pockets for some reason, gee, I wonder where they got all that money, and we didn't get any money. Oh, where did that money come from? Sarcasm. But we're already exhausted from corporations taking advantage of 2020. We're already exhausted from 2020. And now we're like 2 years into this pandemic, and corporations are just a mega mind here. It just turns into this place of just like a complete meltdown mess that everybody's tired and big corporations are thriving. And it's just incredibly stupid. I hate NFTs.
On top of that, because you make a really interesting point, they're in the position where they're trying to figure out how to make more money. Hence why they like that suggestion of, well, let's put ads in games. Let's jump on the NFT bandwagon. Let's jump on this.
They're putting ads in Netflix now. They're putting ads in Netflix. I'm like, what the heck? This is why we didn't do commercials anyway.
Is that for like the lower tier of Netflix? I think like it's like a lower tier and it's cheaper.
Yeah, so they're going to do a lower tier where it has ads, and then a higher tier where you can pay for and no have ads. But that's why we paid for Netflix in the first place, because we hated cable having ads. So, and then even more so, this is repeating history. This is my last point. I'll make this really quick. I promise you. But like back in the day, right, when broadcast television, right, had all these ads on it, then cable television came in and said, hey, if you pay for cable, no ads. There's going to be limited ads. And then cable got so big, so quick, and then they're like, hey, we could make money off of ads. So then you paid for cable for no ads, and then cable gave you ads. History is repeating itself. You bought Netflix because you want to watch shows without the ads, and then they're like, hey, we could make money off of ads. Here's ads. But you paid for Netflix to not get the ads. And it's just like, now games. We're playing video games because we don't want ads. And now like, hey, we can make money off of ads. History repeats itself, and it's so frustrating. We're in a time where money is so tight for everybody, and they're like, screw you. I don't care that you're a common folk. Give us more money. And it's just like,
that is what you've just explained. That is part of my theory at the minute of the scam that's currently going on, which is subscription services. Because I believe you'll see that with Xbox Game Pass in the next couple of years.
Oh, watch South Park Streaming Wars, by the way, if you haven't already. I'm not talking to you, Adnan. I'm talking about this person.
No,
right here.
I'm like this man. He knows.
Yeah, great, exactly. The Streaming Wars Part 1, Part 2. It's on Paramount Plus, which is funny. It's on a streaming service, but but watch the Streaming Wars. It explains it so.
It's so great, isn't it? So clever. It's so.
Yeah.
It's.
I was like, where are they going to go with the Streaming Wars? And then I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with this. Got it. Okay.
Oh, they do not miss a beat. Those guys.
Oh, no.
They are geniuses.
But that's the thing. It's like explained so well why it's such a mess. It's such a scam and such a mess, and just like, especially the big dude who's like building a house on the river. You know what I mean? Like that. It's such a. Oh, it's so well explained. Oh my god! It's like, yes, you get it.
Yeah. The more that streaming war two-parter goes on, you just like you start getting this realization of it, and that's where I'm at this point where like I've cancelled so many streaming services or like any kind of like subscriptions because they're a scam. That's what they're doing. Yeah. They entice you with something. It's like, here comes Xbox Games Pass, but over the years it'll start fading a little bit. Look at PlayStation Plus when it was first introduced. They're like, oh, look at all these great games yet, but now it's like there's so many people signed up to it. They've now made it compulsory for online. They release one or two games that are decent or
and the
good
tier system
in between
for your PS like collection. Like you got like 3 tiers for like the PlayStation Game Pass. And it's just like, what games do you get? It's so backwards. It's so backwards. I'm waiting for Nintendo to do the same thing, which they are. Yeah. Nintendo Online, but it's only like retro games. So it's like, it's so frustrating.
It's because the hook is to sell it first with these kind of services. It's to hook you in, come over, play it, and then you sign up for it, and you're going to stay with it. And this is the problem with like Netflix. It gets to that point. I think, did I tell you about that tweet Webb sent a while ago where it's like, he's like, I'm on Netflix, and it's like, I turn it off, like no one else. Has anyone else done this? I was like, yeah, that's me. Because I was going on Netflix and I was like, watching stuff. And I was like, there's so much here. I don't want it anymore. I cancelled my Netflix subscription back in April. It's the first time in 6 years I cancelled it. I was like, I'm done at this point. I've done at this point.
And do you know what? Like, on there that's worth a watch. Like I still have it. And I think the Woodstock 99 documentary was really good. But it's like, if I said to somebody, like, oh, you should sign up for Netflix for the Woodstock 99 documentary, I'm not going to say that. That's so stupid. Like, I I had it. It was there. It was a good documentary. I don't think anybody should be sold on Netflix because, a thing is on there. It's so ridiculous. But if anything, like if you sign up to one service, I think HBO Max is probably the best bang for your buck. But even then, it's just kind of like, why sign up for it? They struggle.
Yeah, like all those other services, they're struggling.
The HBO Max is screwing up too. The freaking Scoop thing and Batwoman, I believe. Batwoman they just canceled. So like HBO Max is becoming. Yeah, it was completely done. The whole movie was done. It was ready to go, and then HBO Max is like, nah, we're not going to do it. It's like you're just putting on a streaming service. Like people are here. It's just like you're not waiting for money to come in because it's already come in. All you have to do is just upload it to HBO Max, and like
this is the next era of the streaming wars. There's going to be unregulated. Like they have no control of what they're doing. So like they'll scrap full films if they make them. They're just like, no, we're not going to do this now. This is going to, as I said, watch the trend now. It's going to go into a completely different direction because they are now staple parts of our life, like streaming stuff. But like it's going to be like a constant war now.
Yeah, just to tie this all into what we were talking about before, like we're frustrated with, like, again, Hulu, not really worth the subscription because they have their own problems. HBO Max will cancel things because just because they're a big corporation. Netflix is starting to put in ads. The same trend is going to go into the games industry, and that's why this whole like selling off IPs and selling studios and this is going to go here and NFTs. It's the same kind of dynamic where you can't trust anybody. The only people you can trust are indie devs for now. Like you can only trust Michelle and Luke. That's it. Those are the only developers you can actually trust. But it's the same thing as streaming services as it is in the video games industry, and that's why me and Adnan are both frustrated with this whole like selling off Life is Strange. Life is Strange is going to go here. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe Tencent will pick it up. Oh, maybe another studio will pick it up. And we're just here as Life is Strange fans. Like, can I just play Life is Strange? Can I just play Life is Strange? But no.
Yeah.
Nope. Can't.
Yeah, it's a hard sell with Square Enix, but I think we should wrap that topic up then.
Yeah.
And, we can move into a bit more of a joyous one, which is Spread the Arts. Yeah. Your segment that you introduced. I'll let you take this first.
All right. I'll just plug my own. Okay. So, by the way, if you still do have Netflix, the Woodstock 99 documentary is a 3-part series. I think it's well worth the watch, just because it tells a story of how much the entertainment industry doesn't know entertainment. So I think that's an excellent watch because the industry sucks. But, if you have Netflix, if you don't have Netflix, don't sign up for it. But I'm releasing my EP. It's done. It's 6 tracks. I did it. It's not like your typical EP. It's not your typical music. It is more of a film score, video game score with it has dialogue lines that I wrote. It's with 2 characters, Elias and Neoma. Elias is voiced by my really good friend Marcus Graves. I did projects with him in the past, but Neoma, I already announced this on Twitter, but now it will give you it will give you excitement. Neoma is played by Kylie Brown, who you might know as Rachel Amber in Life is Strange Before the Storm. When we had Kylie Brown on the show, I was still trying to cast for Neoma, and then we had Kylie on. And I was like, oh my god, this is Neoma. Oh my god, like all I kept thinking was like, this is Neoma. So I sent Kylie my script. Kylie loved it, so she agreed to come on board and voice for Neoma. She doesn't play like this huge role, but the track Eden, which is the 4th track on the EP, it's her full lines. It's a complete scene between Elias and Neoma. It is a flashback moment to when they first got engaged. So I hope you enjoy that. So I put a lot of time and effort into this EP. It is called The Essence of Life, which is off of the Latin quotes, Amor est vitae Stupid. I'm so tired. Amor est vitae essentia, which translates to love is the essence of life. So it's on Spotify now. If you're listening to this, it's probably out now. So you'll think that the story is rushed. I'm sorry. I wanted to just dip my toes into this. I just want to have a beginning, middle, and end. This took about 6 months to make for me, with a full-time job that I'm working 10 hours a day sometimes. But I just hope you enjoy it. Kylie Brown's in it. My friend Marcus Graves is in it. I do a little voice in it, so you can find my voice in there. But the last thing I'll say is that, I just put my own kind of mental struggles within this album. So I'm really passionate about it. Track 5 is kind of like how I feel when I'm in like a mental spiral of depression and anxiety. So I wanted to communicate it in that sort of way. So it's a big passion project that I did. I'm going to take a break from music until January. I already have the second album kind of in my head, but I'm not even going to think about it until January. I'm just going to enjoy my pumpkin spice season. I'm just going to play around with music for now, and make more theme music, I guess. But I'm very happy with the end product. So please don't bully me if you don't like it. That's all I say. So The Essence of Life on Spotify, starring Marcus Graves and Kylie Brown. Check it out. I love you. Please don't bully me. That's it.
Very nice, very nice. So my thing will be on Spread the Arts is to promote Adam's album, because I'm not going to say anything here. This is your segment at this point, so I'm going to leave my selection.
You haven't even heard it, and it's not even on Spotify yet, so you can't even say like, oh, it's a good album because you haven't heard it.
Yeah, I've obviously been following it and hearing Adam's woes as a musician, and aptly speaking like a musician of, oh, I'm taking a break after this. Taking a break, well earned as it is. So, but my Spread the Arts will be that you should go and check out Adam's album, because I want this to be about promoting this album that you have been working on for many, many months, and obviously getting Kylie in there as well, which we greatly appreciate with Kylie coming on there. To think you almost didn't have Kylie until there was an intervention from me. I was like, come on, Adam. I was like, let's do it this way. And it's like, bang, there we go, and we sorted it. So it's not an issue. But yeah, I want to plug that, because you should definitely go and check it out. And obviously, as I said, we have Rachel Amber, Kylie Brown herself in this album, so you are in for a thrill ride with with Adam's work. And Adam spends a lot of time self-deprecating, so I want you to go and check it out. And obviously does the themes for this show. He does it for Life After Strange, and obviously you can tell it's going to be great, so you should check that out. So that is my Spread the Art segment, and we'll close this.
Yeah, I'll say one last thing about Eden, which is Kylie's most lines written. I wrote the lines. I heard her lines. I knew what was coming. And even after like making the song, it still brought me to tears. And I'm just like, I wrote the lines. I know what's coming. It's just like it's still like got to me. And I'm just like, I was the one who made it. It's so stupid. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy it. So, The Essence of Life. So, thank you, Adnan.
Yes, absolutely. And we will close out the show here. So, as I said before, thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, please do leave a subscribe, notify yourself, turn on comments. Comment, actually, not turn on comments, comment, like. I hate doing that part. I hate doing the thing, but it just seems to get people there. We do usually have a 50% split of people come back from the channel, and also new people, so do subscribe. And also, again, like, we are on podcast services, so we are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Stitcher, we're on Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify has the video version, as I said before. So if you are on there, go and listen to us. Do give us a rating if you want to as well. It helps the channel. If you are wondering as well why I'm wearing my little sports top, it is currently like 30 odd degrees in the UK, and I've turned off all my fans in my room just so they don't pick up on the recording. So if it looks like I'm a bit tired, it's because the heat is getting to me. So we're going to close out the show here. Just to add on as well, Life After Strange, I don't know when it's coming back. I'm going to try and get it done this month. Things have just been happening. But also we can confirm as well, because it'll go out before this episode is done, that we will be recording with Anastasia Davidson for the next StrangeCast episode. None other than Diane Jacobs herself in Life is Strange True Colours, and also in Life is Strange Remastered Collection. We didn't talk to her about that. She's in it. So we'll see more about what she did in the mocap work there. So that will be in the next episode, which will follow the week after this one. It'll be kind of very similar to the Erika Mori format. So we'll be back sooner than expected. And I hope you guys have submitted questions as well. You'll see a post go out on the Monday before this episode comes out on the Wednesday. So as I said before, guys, stay tuned. StrangeCast will be back. In the meantime, go and check Adam's album out, and we will see you again in the future. Take care, guys.
Peace.